welcome back to Brian's Art of Creation. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend and it's Monday morning. Hope you guys are pumped, ready to get creative, just ready to jump in, do the hustle, and let's have some fun. So in the background, I got one of my new pieces, a life-size Spawn I'm working on for a private collector, and I'm just going to be kind of chipping away at it. But what I want to jump in and talk to you guys this week is how to price and find the value of your artwork. And the reason I want to do this is because I've had a lot of young artists such ask a lot of questions about how to find the best price for your artwork, how, they don't want to price themselves too much, but at the same time they don't want to be undercutting themselves, and a lot of questions kind of around that. So I kind of wanted to jump in and share a little bit of, technical stuff on how I went about building that up and finding a core average and structure for it, as well as a few ideas to kind of also consider and think about that will help you to tweak to get the best possible idea for your prices. So, things like a target audience and what your target audience is and how to tier your product around them to fit that a little bit better. The perceived value of your final product and what it actually is, as well as really taking into account the value of the artwork itself over just the time that you spent. So obviously there's going to be a lot of different things that kind of come into play that, depending on what type of art you create, whether it's paintings or sculpting or, any of those types of things, or whether it's digital art or any of that. But the basic thing that I always started with, and when I, started figuring out my own pricing structure, was you have to start with how much it costs you to make, and you have to make sure that cost is covered. So take into account, if you're painting, the canvas, the cost of the canvas, the brushes, the paint, the clay. The thing that a lot of people always forget is to figure out the cost of, all the disposable stuff, paper towels, plastic cups, stir sticks. When we're doing molding, we go through a lot of plastic cups and stir sticks and, cleanup stuff, paper towels. If you have your own studio space, that's something that's considered as overhead. So that's something that you want to make sure that you have covered, because you're going to be working in your studio to create the artwork. Therefore, a certain portion of it, should definitely be going towards that. So what I did for myself is to go in and figure out exactly how much it cost me for supplies and what it cost me to make. After that, I decided I wanted to figure out exactly how much I wanted to get paid. And I did this on a really light per hour basis. So I took into account how much time something usually costs me. Or how much time something usually takes me. So if it's a full head bust, I would work out, 8 to 10 hours, something like that. And then, that would give me a core structure, and then depending on the complexity of a piece, I would be able to adjust accordingly. So, for example, you figure out your total cost of materials, and then you say, I want to make $25 an hour, and I'm going to be working, and this is going to be for an 18 by 24 canvas. It'll take me approximately 6 hours to paint. So you're looking at somewhere around 150 plus all the cost of materials. And that'll give you something for a basic startup for how much you want to charge for, fine art piece or original works of art. Now, when you look into that, I also want you to take into consideration on how much you want to, fluctuate that, because in the future, you also may want to think about doing paintings and wholesaling stuff. And I guess this will kind of go more towards when you start looking at products like prints and things like that. But even when you're figuring out prices of, some of the products that you're going to create, like for example, when I do the sculptures and I figure out how much each casting is going to take me, and how much each casting, is the materials of the casting itself is going to cost. I also want to make sure that I have enough space and inflation there to where if I decide that I want to start wholesaling a piece and have it sold out of a store, that I'm able to still make money off of the middleman, and they're still able to make money off of the retail price. So that's another thing to kind of consider and think about. When you're figuring out your products, another good thing to think about is looking at your target audience and what your audience is able to afford and what they're willing to pay. Whether that's, fine art for a museum or, high class neighborhood area, of where the store that's going to be selling your artwork is going to be, or if it's in a more middle class type of area and at a coffee shop or something like that. So that's another thing to keep into consideration, whether you're going for more home decor, more high-end fine art stuff, or whether it's more pop culture and posters or something like that. So that's definitely something to keep in consideration. And another way that you can even space that out is, I think you should definitely offer different tiers for your artwork. So you're doing illustrations or paintings, and you should definitely have, a high, a medium, and a low range, to where, I'm going to do these, I'm going to scale it up and do like these big 18 by 24 canvas prints. And then I'm going to have, a middle one where it's going to be like something like 16 by 20 canvas. And then I'm going to have some paper prints that are matted, and that's going to be my low end item. That way, that's something that'll definitely help you to reach out to a larger audience. You're going to have your high-end collectors. You're going to have your collectors that look at it and just like, oh, that is an awesome 18 by 24 canvas, but I just can't afford the $8,000 or $1,000 for it. But hey, that $30 print is right in my price range. I love it. I want it. That way, you're spacing yourself out so that you can reach more people in a larger audience. So that's what I mean by understanding your market and your target audience and where they lay. Another thing to consider that I learned early on is when you start looking into the different products that you're going to create and offer, society puts a certain perceived value on it. So, for example, if you were to create a piece of artwork, let's say you're going to do a painting, a fine art painting. If you were to do that as a print and got it matted and framed, or if you put it on a canvas and did a print, it'll be looked at as a fine art piece, and you'll be able to market and sell it as a fine art piece. However, once you take that artwork and you put it onto a t-shirt or you put it onto a bookmark, now the product that is holding your artwork has put a certain perceived value on it that you're going to have to kind of agree to. I mean, yes, you have this amazing artwork and you just put it on a t-shirt. However, the fact that you put it on a t-shirt has a certain limit to what the market is willing to pay for it. The same thing with a bookmark. If you were, when I used to do some airbrushing stuff and I started doing t-shirts and things, I ran into this as well, to where if you were to airbrush on a t-shirt, you could do a portrait or something like that, and you might be able to get $50 to $100 for it just because it's a one of a kind, it's an original artwork. However, if you transfer that to a canvas and start painting it on there, people perceive that as a fine art piece and something that can hang on their wall, and you can easily do it for like $400 or $500. So that's what I mean by looking at the perceived value of the things that you're going to produce. Another thing, I did a few magnets and a few keychains in the past, and if you were to sculpt something, you could look at this as a little like a little piece of fine art. It could be a little portrait, and if you market it and show it off as a piece of fine art, that's what people will see it as, or even in the model kit industry. However, once once I drilled a hole into it and attached a chain and a keychain, or put a magnet on the back of it, all of a sudden the market sees it as a keychain and no longer as a fine art piece, and therefore, now it's in a $5 to $10 range, maybe 15 for your hardcore collectors. Another example of this was when I heard about I learned about Stan Winston School, and when they or not Stan Winston School, Stan Winston Studio, when they were working on Jurassic Park, they created a maquette for the T-Rex, right? It was created, painted up, looked realistic, super amazing. People looked at it, they're like, "Oh, that's great. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's movie magic. It's special effects." And that's the value they placed on it because of what it was. He used the exact same mold, and he took it to a foundry where he got it cast up in bronze. Now all of a sudden people are looking at it, oh my God, it's art. It's fine art. It's amazing. All because of that subtle change of, let me cast it in a different material. And what I think the reason is because people go to museums and they know that museums have art in it. And we got paintings, we got drawings, we've got the sculptures are either in stone or they're in bronze, and that's why we perceive that as art, and we put that certain artistic and fine art value on it. Whereas when we go into a store and see all this work that's been put into the sculpture of this action figure, but yet we still only perceive it as a toy or a child's plaything, and it lost its value of art. So that's something those are some things to kind of consider when you decide on what kind of product do I want to create, and what's the value that the market's going to allow me to do and allow me to create, and is it worth my time to actually do that. Now the final thing I really want to hammer in is to really focus on the value of the final piece, which is definitely going to take into account the idea of the perceived value of it and what the markets allow, but to really take in and think about the final value of the piece over just the amount of time it took you. You're going to evolve, you're going to get better, and you should really be putting in the fact that you should be making money off of all the work that you put in over the years. If you go strictly by how long something takes you to do, you're only going to be getting paid 4 hours worth of work today for something that would have taken you, but 10 years ago, you'd be getting paid 10 times as much. I mean, an example of this to think about is, let's say you go to a restaurant, you go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. You're going to get a really nice meal, you're going to be paying top dollar, and are you going to be happier, or is that meal going to be a lot more valuable to you if he spent 4 hours cooking it instead of the 20 minutes that it took to get to your table? No, because he might have been able to create that dish in 20 minutes, but he spent over 20 years trying to perfect his skills and his talents. People look at artists and they look at a piece and they're like, he only spent 4 hours on it. I'm not sure if I should be paying this much. But what they're not looking into is the fact that, yes, this only took me 4 hours to paint, but it took me 10 years to learn how to paint this thing in 4 hours. And you want to make sure that you cover yourself for all that backtrack and all that learning that you put into this. Another scenario is, going in for a surgery. Are you going to feel better going to a doctor that says he's going to work on you for 6 or 8 hours, as opposed to a doctor that's only going to take an hour to do everything you need to do, and you're going to have a faster recovery time? You got to think about your artwork in the value of the art itself and the value of the product that you're actually creating. So I know I went all over the place with this. Um, Again, that's how my mind works, and hopefully, you guys were able to tie some things together. Hopefully, one thing was great, two things were great. You guys were able to take at least a little bit out of this. Let me know in the comment section if you guys have any questions or any issues, um, any things that you guys would like to see in the future, like to see me tackle, or any problems you guys are having. And I hope you guys have an awesome week. And get creative, show me what you guys create, and just have fun. Let's do this.